From the Tech in San Jose, welcome to another Tech Close-Up. I'm Mark Albertson. Of course, by now you know that when we're thinking about the Silicon Valley, we're not only thinking about all the technologies here, we're also thinking about all the people behind those great innovations. And that, of course, is what Tech Close-Up is all about. In this month's program, we'll tour a major exhibit here at the Tech and learn how video game technology has come a long way since the early days of Pong. We'll talk with some of the leading scientists in nanotechnology to hear how the field is moving forward into an exciting new future. And Christina King shows how tech company employees are getting ready for the holidays by volunteering at the Second Harvest Food Bank. The story of video games runs a generation. It's all about leaping Marios and gobbling Pac-Man and space invaders of all kind. It's now a multi-billion-dollar industry that reaches into our homes, our offices, and, well, even our cell phones. Well, now there is a traveling exhibit about video games called Game On that's made its way here to the West Coast. And guess what? It's right here at the Tech. I know it looks like I'm playing around on the job, but this is a little bit more than just playing around, and this is, frankly, just a little bit more than your average arcade. In fact, can you believe that we are now old enough to actually have a museum for video games? And the curator is Conrad Bodman's come all the way from Britain to join us. You've been traveling around the world with this exhibit. You finally made it to the West Coast.
Yes, I did, yeah. I mean, it's fantastic that the show's come here because this really is the home of video games. I mean, the show looks at the history of video games from 1962 to the present day. So we're looking at arcade games, home consoles, and we're also looking at online gaming and all the history that surrounds that.
Why do we need a museum like this?
Well, I think there's been a long history now, and there's some very key objects which need savings, and it's important that these things are preserved for museums so that we've got a heritage and can look back on them in years to come.
Did you have a hard time actually finding some of the older games?
We did, yeah. I mean, it's a real problem finding some of the early material now. I mean, there aren't that many public collections, so we've been really relying on private collectors and individuals to borrow works from.
Well, you know the choreography here a lot better than me. Why don't you take me for a tour?
Sure. Well, let's show you around.
From across the ocean comes the Game On exhibit. It was organized by the Barbican Art Gallery in London. It includes more than 100 different games from all over the world.
What's unusual about Japanese gaming is that there's lots more physical interaction in games. The player really gets involved in a very physical way. So this is a dance game. As you can see here, there are various moves.
Oh, no mouse at your feet.
No mouse. No. What you do is actually move your feet. You look at the screen, various instructions come up on the screen, and then you move your feet around, and basically you end up dancing on the floor. In Japan, I mean, we're showing a number of games here. I mean, there are things like train driving games, there are firefighting games.
Really get you involved in the
They
game.
get you involved, yeah. And I think in some ways, you know, because say in Tokyo, I mean, you know, it's a very small city. There's not that much access to kind of, you know, entertainment and so on. So people stay at home and play video games, and some of the physical games are very popular.
Game On showcases some items that are pretty old by today's standards, and they remind us of a time when playing a video game was more social than solitary. Now, these were really pretty much before the video game became so entrenched in the home. With Xbox and everything. These are, you had to go to an arcade to really enjoy
You did.
these
I mean,
things.
there was a kind of social pursuit in a way. I mean, most people's criticisms of video games today are that they're kind of an introverted kind of form of entertainment. You play in your bedroom, you play in front of your TV at home.
It's you and the game.
That's right. But I mean, early on in the 70s, I mean, you would literally go out to a bar or an arcade and actually play games with your friends. You know, so it's a real social atmosphere, and I think in some countries that's still been retained. I mean, particularly in Japan, where arcades are still very, very popular as a form of social entertainment.
The speed of technology innovation was a driving force behind the development of many of today's games, sometimes caused by bright engineering minds who were just looking to kill time. Would you say that video games have inspired technology, or have they benefited from advances in technology?
Well, I think they've really benefited from advances in technology. I mean, if you go back to the very early kind of technology that we're showing in the exhibition, the first exhibit is an early supercomputer called the PDP-1, and a researcher at MIT called Steve Russell designed the first game for that machine in 1962, and he was really taking advantage of technology which has been used for space flight in the 60s.
And we talked to Steve, and he said pretty much he was just like trying to deal with some boredom in between dealing with his work.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways, I mean, that's often how good games have been developed. You know, people have been having fun in between doing other jobs. You know, and that's how that game came about. Yeah.
Because video games have now been with us for a while, it's sometimes easy to forget that some of them were portable handhelds that were developed when Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan were president.
If you look at some of the handhelds here, I mean, some of these are from the early 80s. This is a game called Alien Attack, and again, it's very much a space-based game.
They have been with us for that long.
They have, yeah. I mean, some of these handhelds here are from the late 70s. So
the graphics are rather crude, though.
They are. I mean, they're very simple.
But it's not all about the technology. The visual aspect of games like Ms. Pac-Man depend on captivating action and graphics that take us to a whole different world where it's eat or be eaten. You look at a game like this and how much fun it is, and it's simple graphics, but the challenge drives you so crazy you have to keep playing it.
It does. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I mean, I'm from an art background really, so I'm a visual arts curator, and of course you can look at these games from one perspective and say, well, actually this is a very interesting design. It pushed the technology further forward, but actually when you're saying all that, what you miss is the real excitement, pure excitement of actually playing a game, and the tension that's created, and the world that you're taken into. You know, a totally different world.
As Conrad and I toured the exhibit, the memories came flooding back. Game after game revealed their own little chapter of high-tech history. Looks like a parade of history here. They're all from the same time period.
And then, of course, we've got the Space Invaders on that side, which is one of my favorite games, a game that I was really brought up with. I mean, this was my first experience of video games in the 70s when I was young. Yeah. This is the epitome of the kind of one of the key space games. Which is,
and you being from art, it's almost like synthetic 3D.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of fake 3D backdrop there. Yeah.
The immersion. This was like an addiction.
Oh, this was. I mean, this was so huge at its time. You know, I mean, I think people forget how important it was. But and of course, it's got this heartbeat soundtrack that kind of gets faster and faster as you move along. Yeah. And as you shoot more of the aliens, you know, the beat kind of speeds up.
The people who made video games really tapped in to human nature.
It is. That's right.
It's not just that we want to play. It's like you in the game. You're just it's the whole world is shut out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just you in the game. You know, completely disconnected from the rest of the environment.
And there was one game that came with only one simple instruction: avoid missing ball for high score. It went by a simple title too: Pong.
This is the first kind of home console that was developed by a guy called Ralph Baer from 1972. So this is really the starting point. We can trace the Xbox all the way back through history.
So we have video game anthropology now.
We do. Yeah. I mean, and of course, this is a very famous kind of early game called Pong, which most people remember. You know, tennis game, but still very
But this
interesting.
is what started in the home.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, with this game, I mean, you could buy, along with the console itself, you've got different kind of like vinyl screens that you put on your TV, and you know, all of the games that you could get for this console were based on this kind of basic tennis game. Yeah, so
you either can credit this game or blame this game for whatever has happened to society.
And it's kind of a very nice sort of futuristic kind of white plastic console there with space age graphics and so on.
I seem to remember these on an old Atari that I had. So this is where we were beginning to get games into the home.
That's right. Yeah, I mean the Atari sort of 2600 here came out in 1981, and I think this was really the first mass market kind of home game console. You know, you had cartridges that you could plug in, and you know, Space Invaders was available on this home console, so you could begin to play things at home.
The memory technology for the arcade games was very robust at this point.
Yes.
It must have been quite a challenge to take at least the concept of that technology and compress it and shrink it into something you could use at home.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I suppose what we're talking about here is the beginning of software. I mean, these cartridges are software, and you would buy them separately from the console. So that was the kind of new marketplace that was created. But I mean, these are actually very, very robust machines. And I mean, this is an original machine from, you know, the early 1980s, which is still working today.
And then there were games that became solid gold hits. Over 40 million copies of Super Mario Brothers have been sold, making it the best-selling game ever.
Yeah.
And then along comes a couple of guys named Mario Brothers, and then society changes.
That's right. I mean, this was one of the early kind of Japanese consoles, and you know, it was really the first time that the word Nintendo was associated with consoles, and we see one of the early Mario games playing here. But I mean, Mario went on to become a huge kind of global character, and supposedly even more well known than Mickey Mouse.
Wow, that's hard to do. Well, as video games grew up, they created demand to add more players who could play together at the same time. Now, I'm really fascinated by this part of the exhibit. This is probably, we've been led now into the future.
Yeah.
And
I mean, what we're looking at here is kind of multiplayer gaming. So we're looking at various games that you can play on kind of with your friends.
And also, this is high def. This is widescreen television.
Well, we're just using that to kind of show it here, but originally it would have just been shown on a domestic TV, probably a portable in a
But they're designing games now for high def?
Yes, they are. I mean, of course you can use high definition screens to kind of show your games. Of course, a lot of people are buying projectors now and just projecting their games straight onto their bedroom wall, you know, so they can get a much better screen size and resolution.
Game On is a traveling exhibit. It's been seen by millions of people around the world, but ironically, this is the first time Game On's appeared on the West Coast, where, hey, let's face it, a lot of these games were first developed. You have a very calm, matter-of-fact approach to a whole technology that has changed our lives.
It has.
Does it ever overwhelm you?
Well, it does. I mean, it was very difficult kind of actually choosing the objects to go in this exhibition because there's just so much to choose from. I mean, it's rapidly developed, and it is a new art form. I mean, you know, the history of film is 100 years old. I mean, games are kind of really in their infancy, but this exhibition was an opportunity to really try and pick out the highlights of video games over the years. And
I bet it's hard to get people to leave this exhibit.
It is. I mean, people are so excited when they come here. I mean, you know, adults bring their children. The kids are excited because they've never seen any of the early games. I mean, they've maybe got them on their Game Boys and so on, but they didn't realize they were kind of designed for a console which they've never seen.
Who's harder to get out, the kids or the parents?
Well, I think it's probably the parents in some ways.
As new technology tools become available, video game developers are introducing new products that are so lifelike, you feel like you're actually in the driver's seat. Now, this is real video.
This is real video, yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier on, I mean, games have become more than just kind of games to play. I mean, the designers are now not just individuals working in small teams. They're big teams of maybe sometimes up to 50 people.
As you went around collecting these technologies, did it surprise you just how far we had come and what we do with games?
It did. I mean, particularly when you think about online gaming and the possibilities that it has now. I mean, the way online gaming is really breaking down the barriers of kind of time and communication and language and so on. It's things have really moved on.
By reliable estimates, 67% of households with children own at least one video game system. And that number of actual games sold is, well, as you might expect, growing really rapidly. Is it a good thing that we have been so immersed in games?
I think it is. I think games have been very positive for us. You know, they're a way of relaxing, they're a way of learning, they're a way of discovering new technology, and I think that's very important for culture.
And you call this exhibit Game On.
That's right, Game On, yeah.
Well, why don't you give me the origin of the name?
Well, Game On is often what you see when you first kind of go into a screen of an arcade game. It says Game On, it means start. And this is really a starting point. What we're doing is hoping that other institutions will begin looking at video games as a serious art form in the future.
You know, there's small, there's tiny, and then there's nanotechnology. It's hard to believe there's scientific particles so small there's hardly any technology to see them. But there's a lot of scientists now who are making it their life's work, and a group of them recently met in San Francisco to talk about their research. And Tech Closeup was there for a little bit. This is the world as seen through nanotechnology, a tiny world of man-made molecules, smaller than human hair, just a few atoms thick, but crafty enough to kill cancer, speed up computers, or even drill through solid diamonds.
What nanotechnology is about is getting better control of the structure of matter. That is inherently a process that should lead, in the longer term, to safer products, cleaner products, more energy efficient products.
Sounds like a grand revolution, but is smaller really better?
They are operating at quantum.
That question drew the world's all-stars of nanoscience to the Foresight Institute, a San Francisco science conference where one of the buzzwords was nanolitter.
The nanolitter could come from nanoparticles that are no longer being used, things that have nanoparticles in them breaking and getting into the environment and that kind of thing. It's not that I or anyone else wants to scare anyone, it's just to make sure that we look at these things before we start producing nano machines and chemicals.
Where there's risk, there's also great promise. The National Cancer Institute is high on dendritic technologies, a Michigan firm that's built sort of a nano-Trojan horse. It hunts down hard-to-find tumors like ovarian cancer. It's made with chemicals that fool tumors to think it's food. But once inside cancer cells, it unleashes killer drugs that make tumors die.
When we think about our technology, okay, we get so excited and passionate because we can really do something here to improve the quality of human life. But if we can get this early diagnosis and save human lives, certainly you don't stop because there are people out there saying that they might cause degenerative brain disease and walleye bass.
Now, nobody's saying stop yet. Dendritic's cancer killer is 2 years away from human clinical trials. So far, no government regulations are in the way.
I actually have thought a lot about how a regulatory program would work. I don't think we're ready to regulate because we don't understand the technology well enough. It's developing so quickly. There's many, many unknowns.
And there's a lot of unknown nano. Not many tools are small or sharp enough to design or test things so tiny. One answer may come from sort of a nano squirt gun, a phenomenon where hot bubbles shoot tiny water beads 4 times the speed of sound. So fast, the water cuts through metal or rock.
I can drill holes through all materials, including all the way up through diamonds. In fact, I've done silicon carbide, stainless, all types of brittle materials.
Why would we want to use this?
Well, right now there's a scarcity of tools in nanotechnology. One of the problems is that lasers can't get down below wavelength limitations, so they have a hard time operating what we call the submicron regime, which is where nanotechnology does its thing. So in order to be able to machine or fabricate in the area of around 100 nanometers, this is going to allow a whole new technology to emerge for tools. It's a tool technology.
Nanoscience faces lots of challenges, not just in the lab. A Bush administration science advisor reminded them they've got to explain their science to the non-scientists too.
Science provides opportunity. We in policy have to facilitate the conversion of that opportunity into real benefits for our fellow communities. And that community discussion should involve scientists who know about the science.
The small nano world holds out a multi-billion-dollar prize, so industries are rushing to go nano.
We're going to see some wonderful things. We're going to see some things where it was not quite what we wanted. This is normal in technology. In the longer term, I think we're going to be very pleased with how this could work out, especially environmentally and medically.
Risks or not, nanotechnology's big on an old saying, that it's a small world after all. In every community around America, people gather for the holidays around a traditional family dinner. Let's face it, one of these days we're going to be doing that in space too. But every year also there are those less fortunate who need some help. Well, Christina King followed some tech employees who volunteer their time to make the holidays just a little bit brighter.
We happen to be working today on pasta and beans. And so they're putting 16 packages per box, and then we're putting them on these cradles here. And I suspect that they're going to get boxed for distribution at a later time.
Inside a San Jose warehouse, hundreds of boxes of pasta and other foods are carefully sorted and packed. This crew of volunteers doesn't slow down. They're on a mission.
So we've got all kinds of pasta in here, and we're putting 16 pastas per bag or per box. And we wrap it up, we tape it right here, and after that we're gonna stack them up over there.
The workers are all Microsoft employees working on company time for a good cause. Second Harvest Food Bank of San Mateo and Santa Clara counties relies on folks like these to get food out to families in need.
Our service area stretches from Gilroy to Daly City and from the ocean to the bay. We distribute 28 million pounds of food per year through 700 partner nonprofit agencies. And what that means is that we are a food bank. We take the food in and then we distribute it back out to different organizations that actually serve the food.
See all these bins? They just keep bringing them. There is no end. It just keeps coming. It's good. It's good stuff.
The food bank and the agencies it serves say hunger in the Bay Area has risen 40% over the past 3 years. Second Harvest provides food to an estimated 160,000 people on the peninsula and in the South Bay every month. With all that food coming and going out of this warehouse, volunteers are worth their weight in gold.
Actually, our holiday food drive is the largest holiday food drive in the nation and has been for over a decade.
Wow.
And that's made possible by the corporations in Silicon Valley who volunteer for us every October through January and bring in thousands, actually millions of pounds of food for us.
All of it passes through this 65,000 square foot warehouse. And all of it is packed with love and respect from volunteers like these.
I just like to think somebody somewhere is going to benefit from having this food and being able to avoid the problem of being unable to feed their children or their families at a particular time when they've encountered some hardships.
Regina Tolbert, a live meeting solutions specialist with Microsoft, says she's taking on a new title here today.
Chief Milk Packer. And I gave myself a promotion, Chief Milk Packer, because I assemble the boxes too.
Once all the boxes are taped up, they stack them, and they're heavy too. And then the forklift comes and gets them, takes them way over to the other side of the warehouse. From there, the member agencies get to come in and take what they need to put on their own pantry shelves.
The startling fact is that most of the people who will receive this food have jobs, but still cannot make ends meet.
I believe that there's a lot of people in the valley who maybe have been misplaced or reassigned their work tasks, and maybe it's challenging them to meet their financial obligations. So this way you can come up and anonymously get the sustenance that you need for your family.
As they sort, the Microsoft workers say they get something in return, not just simply an afternoon away from the office.
I actually didn't know what to expect and am really actually pleasantly surprised. It feels good to actually be getting something done and helping other people and actually out of the office for a little bit. Well worth it.
On top of that, the Microsoft employees get to meet coworkers from other departments as they sift through the dry goods.
One of the Microsoft managers just told me that, kind of in confidence, that this is probably Microsoft's best team building event that they hold every year. Isn't that cool?
And that's packing a lot of goodwill into just a few hours on a workday.
It does feel good to do something else completely different. You're not running from one meeting to the other or meeting, thinking about your focus is different. Your focus now is to get these food items into a box so that somebody else can have them.
Christina King for Tech Closeup.
Have you ever wondered just what you could see if you were up in outer space? Well, at Tech Bites, we wondered the same thing, and now there is some software that actually lets you do it. Tony Santos from the Tech is here to join us to show us this. This is remarkable technology.
Yeah, this is some software that we've licensed here, third-party software at the Tech, and right now I'm zooming in on Liberty Island, just off of Manhattan, looking at
That's the Statue of Liberty,
yeah,
seen
right?
from space?
This is the Statue of Liberty and her shadow. And it's really breathtaking. It's exciting to see, obviously, how this technology has advanced
I mean, this is better than somebody just taking a picture. I mean, we're talking about technology from 150 miles up.
Right, exactly, and we're just seamlessly zooming in on it and having some fun with it.
And then you can go across to New York City?
We sure can. We can go right into Manhattan.
And these are all digitally stored images.
Right, exactly.
These are not live pictures, but
no,
it's
not
digitally
relatively
stored.
recent. I've looked up some housing developments that I know are under construction and have been able to zoom in, and you see that they had broken ground by the time these were captured.
Are they updating the images?
Yeah, exactly. So we license from this company, Keyhole, who provides this.
And can we actually see where we are right now?
We sure can. We can zoom on the fastest trip across the country I can think of. We can zoom right into downtown San Jose.
Whoa.
And you can see some areas that are more populous have finer detail. Obviously the Bay Area has great detail. Manhattan, of course. And we'll zoom right onto the roof of the Tech Museum, and you can see the IMAX dome. Can't miss it.
Can you actually see people?
You can. I saw some people on the street corner in Manhattan. It looks like across the plaza here by the Fairmont. There are some people here. Whatever was out and about when these images were captured. And then
so you never know who's watching.
Yeah, right? Big Brother's watching. And then just to show you the sort of ultimate exercise here, we're headed to Bombay.
Oh, over the Pacific? Wow, around the world in 30 seconds.
Right. Bombay's obviously high population and relatively dense here in terms of the quality of the images. Give it a second.
It is stunning that the video and the images would be that crisp.
It's incredible. I think this is, this is obviously a lot of fun, but it's a great educational tool also. Just from a geography perspective, from a space, we're in the space exploration gallery here at the museum. A lot of implications
And what do kids say about this?
Oh, they love it. They're typing in their house, the White House. I mean, they're having a lot of fun. Just there's a geography component here, but really just the idea that, it sort of makes all of the emerging technology happening in space exploration and what's actually happening in space right now more real for people.
Well, I think here at Tech Bites we can now truly say, without any question, it truly is a small world, isn't it? Tony, thanks for joining us on Tech Bites again.
Absolutely.
It's been a busy and exciting month for us at Tech Closeup. We were named a finalist for Best Magazine Show of the Year at the Alliance for Community Media. And we picked up yet another station, Morgan Hill Access Television, which means Tech Closeup is now seen in 2.5 million homes across the Bay Area. Now you can find out where and when Tech Closeup is seen on your cable system on our website at techcloseup.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Levinson. And remember, if you want to stay close to the technology that drives this great Silicon Valley, well then join us next time for another edition of Tech Closeup.